Welcome to the Call Your Shot podcast, your weekly sports recap podcast where we break down the hottest headlines, dissect the latest injuries, and serve up our own hard-hitting analysis of the past week in sports. But that's not all. We're not just here to talk about the past, we're here to predict the future as well. On the Call Your Shot podcast, we boldly predict the outcomes of the upcoming week's games.
Fair enough. Hopping into basketball, I think before we get into anything good, we should probably point out the negative. The Detroit Pistons. As we've talked about with the Detroit Lions, they have more wins in the calendar year of 2023 than the Pistons do, which doesn't make any sense because, as many of you probably know, in the NFL, you play 17 games in the regular season, and there's an 82-game season for the NBA. So the Pistons are currently rolling on a 28-game losing streak. They had a very close call against the Celtics last night as they blew a 21-point lead, halftime lead to the Celtics and ended up losing in overtime. So now they are tied at 28 for the longest losing streak in NBA history. So, yeah, it's not looking too great for them. Every single loss that they have an interview with Cade Cunningham talking about how I don't think we're 28-game losing streak that bad. Like, I don't think we're that bad. And
No,
all that
you
kind of
are.
stuff.
You are.
Cade's dropping numbers, but I mean, kind of have to when it's bad. So it's been kind of weird because, we had Monty Williams coming from the Suns, who was able to turn the Suns franchise around and turn them into basically final contenders for a good 2 or 3 seasons. And now you're kind of in this mess and situation. And I don't think it's not like they're going to part ways with Monty Williams, I don't believe, after the first season, but it's bad. So I don't really know what you do.
Yeah.
Do you make additions at the trade deadline? Because it's not like you can trade any of your young core pieces because that's the whole point. But it's bad. Their next game, they can set the franchise record and not in a good way.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things too. We kind of talked about this the last time as well, but they're like, other than this game that they just played last night, like they're not really even competing with teams at all. Like they're out there and they're trying, but they're not doing anything productive. And I think a large part of it too comes down to the lineups that they're playing. You can't play like 3 different players that can't shoot. Like you're playing basically 3 centers out there, and like that's not going to work in this day and age of the NBA. And especially if you hope to, I don't know, win any games anytime soon, you need to play more of Jaden Ivey. He's one of your better options out there. You can't really play more of Cade Cunningham. Like he can't do everything. He needs help. And my boy Azir Thompson, as well. He's not much of a scorer, but he can help facilitate some of the offense and also be a great asset on the defensive end. And he can knock down the occasional 3 too, which keeps defenses honest. But you can't do that if you're playing Jalen Duren at the same time as Marvin Bagley or at the same time as Isaiah Stewart. Like, you can't play all these big men that can't shoot outside of the paint at the same time. That's not going to work. And you'd think that Monty Williams would figure that out by now after, we keep on losing with this lineup. What should we do? You know what? Let's add another big man to the offense. Yeah, let's do that. Like, what? No.
Reverse
like
psychology.
opposite of what you're It's like, oh my God. So I don't know what they're doing.
It's been kind of weird too, because like teams, I don't know if teams publicly came out and said it, but a lot of people are kind of like inferring like with that losing streak so bad, it's like you're getting every team's best effort because they don't want to be the team to lose to them. Like I've never seen the Boston Celtics, like it's like they were playing the Lakers on Christmas Day when they were trying to come back from that because they were at home too. And like they were doing everything in their power and they were pumped. So I'm like, y'all are pulling out all of the sticks to try to beat the Pistons in a game in December because you don't want to be the ones to blow the losing streak to them. So that kind of sucks for them too, because that was basically the reality. You're going to get every team's best effort because I ain't losing to trash. What does that make me?
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame them. Like, and the thing that's supposed to be the quote unquote great equalizer out there is the point spread, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's supposed to be able to give other teams, or I guess bad teams a chance against good teams, and
Mm-hmm.
so on and so forth. However, the Pistons aren't covering that either. Like they're 9-19 against the spread,
Mm-hmm.
and they're one of the worst teams in the league at covering the spread. And it's not like, oh, it's just like a 1 point spread. No, dude, these last night 17 points. They
Mm-hmm.
covered. That's great, but other than that, like they've been losing these games where the spread is double digits for most of them, and they're still not able to keep it close and competitive. Versus the Spurs, who at least keep it competitive. They even beat my Portland Trailblazers last night, surprisingly. But
Mm-hmm.
like they compete and they occasionally get wins. Maybe not all that often, but a lot more than the Pistons do. So,
Right.
um, yeah, I don't know what's going on with them. And the scary thing too is the updated win total for for the Pistons is 9. Um, and I don't know if they're gonna get to it, honestly.
I don't know where these 7 wins are coming
It's
from. I'm just saying.
yeah. Let me pull up the Pistons schedule here. This because I mean,
And like, unless they're playing like the Spurs or the Trailblazers or the Hornets or Washington, like I want to, are there? I don't know what games, how many
so
games are favorited in for the rest of the season.
I can guarantee they're not gonna be favored in really any game.
That's what I'm saying.
So the last time they were favored, I took them, and that was against the Jazz. They were favored by 2.5 points, and well, actually, the line opened up at Pistons +1, so I took +100 odds on them just to win the game. And then the line moved in my favor up to -3, and I was like, "Oh, this is great! Got great closing line value. Closing line value means jack shit in the NBA, and it's so frustrating because line can move in your favor. You have everything right, and then they just piss it all away. So in the last game that they were favored, it was against the Jazz, and they lost to the Jazz 119 to 111. The next time that they play the Jazz is on coming up here, actually on the 3rd of January, and this time it's at the Jazz.
Mm.
The line currently isn't out yet, but I would imagine that the Jazz are going to be probably a 4.5 point favorite, maybe 3.5 or so. And you best believe everybody and their mom's going to be on the other side and picking the Jazz to win this game. Um, and I mean, I don't blame them either because it's it's almost free money at this point. Um, but yeah, so they go against the Raptors tomorrow, then they go the Rockets, Jazz, Warriors, Nuggets, Kings, and then they play the Spurs January 10th. So maybe they can get the Spurs then. But I I don't know.
Fair
Who knows where
enough.
this win's gonna come?
Enough talking about the Pistons. Moving on.
Yeah.
As we mentioned at last episode, Ja Morant did return from his 25 game suspension and immediately came in and hit a game winner against the Pelicans. Um, he was player of the week for this last week because he went 3-0 in his return back, and it seems like that's what I was talking about. Like they with John the lineup, they just look like an elite type team. I'm not going to say that they look elite right now, but they did go on a 4-game win streak. Ja did not play, I believe it was yesterday, against the Nuggets as they got destroyed by 38 points. But it basically just goes to show what, he means to that team and how impactful of a player that he can be in. And, whenever you need a bucket, especially when it comes to crunch time and late in these games, he's able to close out games for them. So, as we both talked about, I think that the Grizzlies have an opportunity to squeak into a play-in spot, and then would have to only win 2 games to get into that playoff spot within the 8 seed. But I would only probably have them as a 9 or 10 seed. Over the past week or two with Ja, do you feel any differently about that? Now, do you now have a little bit more confidence in them potentially getting there? They are now sitting at 10-20, and I believe 12th in the West. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, breaking news, your all-star player, that
All NBA.
is arguably one of the best players in the league. Yeah, like is he makes a difference.
Who would have
Okay,
thought it?
that's great. Yeah, and so I mean, I don't know. I still think that um they have a ways to go to solidify that playoff spot. But as far as like the play-in tournament goes and stuff like that, I think that they're almost like a shoe in for that spot there.
Still got
my
52
only
games left in
concern,
the season, so yeah, that's a
yeah.
lot of time.
So my only concern is like staying healthy and stuff, and
Hmm.
that that's the same thing with everybody. But um, I also think that while he does help on the defensive end or on the offensive end, he kind of does give up some on the defensive end as well. It does help that you got Marcus Smart back too for the first time in a while, in since like middle of November or something like that. But I think this is kind of funny. Um, so the difference between Ja on the court and off the court is 19.7. So like
What's the problem?
I guess he makes a difference. I guess he makes a little bit of a difference.
Just a little bit.
And on the offensive end, he adds 13.1 points. On the defensive end, he's helping prevent 6.5 points. So like it, with and without Jaw makes a difference. Unlike like I talked about before a couple years ago, where it didn't really make a difference, and they were actually had a better record without Jaw on the floor, which is where some of these stats can get caught up and have a lot of noise to them. Um, but I mean, even that stat right there just goes to show, like he definitely makes a difference. So yeah,
This is facts. Additionally, we had news that the Phoenix Suns can sense Kevin Durant's frustration within the team. They are currently 15-15, and talking about 10th, they are currently 10th. So if the playoffs and play-in were to start today, they would be the last team in the play-in. They are 3-7 over their last 10 games. As I mentioned, I did go to a Portland Trailblazers game on the 21st where they played the Suns, and surprisingly, Portland ended up winning that game. So it just
damn
is not.
straight.
And hey, side note, Scoot has been looking better. I'm not going to lie. Like I saw Scoot, like I'm saying, like I understand the potential. I don't. He needs to take them
It's got to
goggles
be the
off.
goggles.
He needs to take the
It's got to be the
goggles off.
goggles.
But
That's what's helping him.
he also came
Couldn't
out like
see
a couple
before.
days ago and said that he doesn't think that the Rookie of the Year race is over yet, or he says it's up in the air, and
Scoot
that he
said
could.
that.
Yes, Scoot came out and said that he's like the Rookie of the Year race is still up in the air, and I'm still aiming to win Rookie of the Year. So there you go, Drew. You still have a chance.
Boy.
You know, forget Victor Wembanyama, Chet
Um,
Holmgren, and Jaime Jaquez and Azir Thompson. Forget all of them. Scoot McGrew is still on the prowl. He's still looking to win that Rookie of the Year trophy.
my boy was 8 of 23 last night. So Grant he had 25 points, but 8 of 23. And when I was looking at it in the first half, I think he must have only taken, I want to say like 4 or 5 shots in the second half, because he only had made 4 shots. He was like 4 of 18 or 4 of 20. Like when I looked, because I had a bet on the Blazers last night, and I was like, dude, this is just burn it, just light it on fire, put it on a rocket ship, and send it to the moon. Like this is
My donation to charity
terrible
for the
idea
day.
for real. But yeah, I mean,
Average has been
and
coming
then on
up,
the other
Drew.
side,
12 points, 3
so
rebounds. His averages they've been trending up. I'm just saying.
woo, yay,
On a bright note, though, for you guys, Anthony Simmons is quietly averaging 27 points a game, and he
yeah.
looks like the real deal. But back on the right track. The Suns 15-15. Kevin Durant, it's not looking good. Bradley Beal is supposed to come back today against the Hornets, so this will be, I believe, the first time that all three of them are playing together, or yeah, one of the first times. I don't know. I can't. They might have got 1 or 2 games in.
The second time,
Okay, this will
yeah,
be the
second
second
time.
time. So
The first time they played, and then I think Devin Booker or no, somebody got hurt. Like whenever one player comes back, the other person gets hurt. So
but like even watching the games, like I don't know if it's necessarily the fact that because they can score. Like I was watching the game with the Portland Trailblazers, and I was like, Kevin Durant's so good. Like I looked up and he had 40 points at the end of the game. I was like, oh, okay. But like they can't stop nobody. Like I don't know if Bradley Beal is going to be the answer. But I mean, again, I guess you could just outscore people with 3 juggernauts on offense. But I mean, I don't know.
So okay, so tonight they are
The
at some
Hornets.
books they have them. Yeah, they play against the Hornets, and they're 16-point favorites.
Yeah,
I feel like that's a lot. Like I
that
don't
is a
care
lot.
that the Hornets run a back to back.
The Hornets lost to
The
the
Hornets
Lakers
just
by
got
like
blasted.
7 last night. Oh no, it
No,
was
they
it ended
lost
up
by more than that. Yeah,
Okay, they
they
lost by
got
21. Oh,
yeah.
go Lakers.
It was close for a little bit there,
That's what I'm
and then
saying. I stopped watching.
yeah, then the Lakers were like, yeah, no, hold my beer.
Yep.
So it was 13 points, 13-point spread last night against the Lakers, and now it's 16 against the Suns. Do you think that the Suns are a 3-point uh are 3 points better than the Lakers?
Not right now, but I mean, a Bradley Beal, we trust apparently.
I
He's going to be on
Even
a
though
limited
all of our
time and
picks,
everything too. I don't know.
yeah, all of our picks have been on just in the NFL. I might put this one in for us.
Give me the Hornets
Like
for
that is
16 and a half.
like
Go
that's
Miles
like the
Bridges.
Hornets haven't been that bad, you
I
know.
mean, and they're playing without
Um,
their best player too. So I mean, like,
yeah, and
and Gordon Hayward's out.
see, like, so the one thing I like about cleaning the glass is that they give you a breakdown of um the each matchup at each level and each position. So like right now it shows that the Hornets are fourth in the league when it comes to shots at the rim. So that's kind of where they like to hang around. That's where they like to shoot the ball, and they are 18th when it comes to success at the rim, and the Suns are 20th when it comes to defending the rim. That tells me they might have some success there. And then they're 12th when it comes to percent of shots at the short mid range, and 11th at all mid range. However, this is where it gets kind of ugly for the where this is where you get the 16-point spread. At the short mid range, where they are 12th at in terms of frequency, they are 25th in terms of shooting percentage, and the Suns are 6th. Um, and that is a problem. And then when it comes to all mid range, the Hornets are 26th in terms of percentage, and the Suns are third, which could also be a major problem. Actually, I don't want to take the Hornets anymore.
Talk myself out of it.
glad we glad we talked this through.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We don't have to talk about that.
Yep.
Moving on
Moving on.
to the awards, but nothing much has changed when it comes to kind of the awards ladder. Rookie of the Year battles just still going back and forth between Chet and Victor Wembanyama. At this point, I really don't know who's going to get it, but Joel Embiid is currently, staking his claim for a back-to-back MVP. He's currently averaging 35 points a game as the 76ers sit third overall within the East. And Joel Embiid is having the best scoring season from a big man perspective since Wilt Chamberlain. And he played in the 1960s. So and he's only playing 34 minutes a game. Like when it comes to like elite players and MVP type players, all NBA players, they're usually playing like 37, 38 minutes a game. He's only playing 34. Granted, a lot of that is because like they're just blowing out teams, but he's never been a high minutes player. So like you can't just like, stat it out and be like, oh, if he played an extra 4 minutes, he'd probably be close to 40 or something like that. But it is kind of crazy to think about. He's averaging 35 minutes or 35 points on 34 minutes a game, which would be only the second time, like I think over the past 25 years, that a player has averaged more points than minutes when it comes to like elite players and elite scoring. Only other player that's done that was Giannis. So, do you think that Joel Embiid is basically locking up this MVP race? You could have that trophy with Maxey. They can have two.
I mean, yeah, I like it in terms of like dominance. Like he literally is single-handedly the reason why I mean not single-handedly, but he's one of the major reasons why the 76ers have had so much success this season after getting rid of James Harden, where everybody thought, oh well, now the 76ers are gonna just like go downhill from here, and they'll maybe get into the playoffs as like a 5 seed, maybe an 8 seed or something. And Joel Embiid backpacking every night, putting up 40, and everybody's like, "Oh, okay, well, he does that, and then he'll take a game off, and then he's got to rest, and then, he doesn't have the endurance to keep going." But quietly, he's been working on his endurance each year, and he's been able to improve it. And we're kind of seeing him be able to manage his body a lot better than what he has before, and he's starting to realize that, hey, maybe if I want to be in those conversations, that if I want to win those awards, and I want Shaq to stop hating on me for you know playing every other game and not being available as much as I should be, then I got to be out there. I got to play at least 65 games to win these awards and stuff too. And so now he's showing what he can do on a night to night basis, and he's playing hard on every play too. So, and it's crazy too because like we're used to just saying like, okay, he had a 40-point night, like the next night probably gonna take it off, and on the second night of a back to back, like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But then he goes out another night, and then 35 and 20. Oh, okay, like so, and I feel bad for guys like Shea, like
Yeah,
he's like one of the best scorers in the league, and he's not gonna win. Like he might get like
you might get a vote
some
or two.
votes for
Yeah.
MVP, yeah, but like there's not really any award that you can give him other than just like all NBA.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but even then because you have Luca's big ass playing point guard, so it, I don't know what he can get, like All Star. I guess that's great.
Yeah, he
That
may be
doesn't
first.
doesn't feel as
He'll
good.
probably be like a first team All NBA, him and Luca type. I think that he's currently sits like top five when it comes to MVP voting, along with like Embiid, Jokic, Giannis, Luca, and him. And then I think if you go a little further down the line, you get to the Tyrese Halliburton and things of that nature. But Joel Embiid has just been playing out of his mind. 35 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 block, and or 1 steal and 2 blocks. And he's
Hmm.
played 25 out of 30 games so far, so he's only missed 5 games. So he's been great for
Hmm.
them. Any other team
And
specific? Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, speaking of only missing 5 games, you have your boy Kawhi
Oh,
Leonard
I
as
thought you were going
well.
to say somebody else.
He he's been this is one of the main problems with the Clippers is when they're all healthy, they like we've seen what they can do. Like they're one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah.
The problem is when they're all healthy. And so
Oh, don't do
right
this
now,
now. I don't want to hear it.
I'm
I'm
just
just
saying, I'm just saying, I'm just
mm
saying, I'm not going back on anything. Like
mm
I know this was the main problem. I know
mm
this is the thing. But at the same time, like, it's starting to happen. Like you just thought that, oh, like, he landed on his hip, like, hip contusion or whatever, like he'll be out maybe a game or two.
mm
But then now he's been out for a couple games, and you're starting to wonder, like, I thought it was just like a minor thing.
He
Like,
hasn't
why
been
is he still
active at
out?
any practices apparently either.
Exactly. And so this is kind of a little more concerning too. Like he's been logging a lot more minutes than he normally does, and he's been playing on back to backs on each occasion as well, and which is good to see him out there. And you want to see the best players competing every night, but at the same time, this is the risk that you run when you do that, especially with the injury riddled team.
Mm-hmm.
Like sit them down. As much as I'm a proponent for playing the best players each night and everything like that, when you have a delicate, fragile flower like Kawhi Leonard, you want to protect it. You want to hold the flower. You don't want to squeeze the flower. You want to just gently hold it. You don't want to shake the flower. You want to cradle it. All right. You don't want to do all these crazy things to it. You want to protect it. And Kawhi Leonard is the man you need to protect going forward. He is his plus minus or on off stats, I guess I should say, according to Cleaning the Glass, is 15. So he's and when he's off the court, you're losing out on 15 points, 15-point difference. That's how much he means to the team, which is one of the most differentials in the league. So
Yeah, fair enough. I agree with you. I think that they had to obviously see with what they had. Obviously they have to play everybody, especially with these new NBA mandates and game requirements, things of that nature. But now that they've gone on their streak, now they're firmly within the playoff spot. I think they're third or fourth seed overall right now. Now that you're finally seeing these injuries come to fruition with the Clippers, which was like just like Thanos, just like it was inevitable. Um, I think that this is why you have the plethora of stars that you have, because you could sit quiet and you could still have a starting lineup of James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Paul George, Terrence Mann, and Zubac, which would arguably be better than the majority of lineups that people have throughout the NBA. So I think the Clippers' depth, and you got Norman Powell coming off the bench. Like, you have the amount of weapons that they have. I think that now they can probably afford to rest Kawhi. So I'm not exactly sure the extent or the severity of his injury. I believe it was, like you said, it was the hip. How major it is going to be for him going forward, but I think that they can play it from a cautious standpoint, because I don't think that Kawhi is shooting for MVP. Kawhi is worried about like the playoffs. That's what he's worried about, and that's what I think the Clippers are worried about, because now they're in a situation. They've gone all in on James Harden. They've gone in on this like the last year that the Kawhi Paul George situation is going to happen. So they need to at least make it to at least like the Western Conference Finals. Otherwise, I would say that this season is a complete bust for them. So I do not mind
Mhm.
sitting Kawhi at this point. Side note, one player that many people, along with Kawhi, do ridicule a lot because of his lack of playing time or the lack of consistency. Same with Joel Embiid, is Anthony Davis, known for missing time
Yeah.
all the time like that. Anthony Davis has played
Street clothes.
78 of the last 82 games. Over the last 82 games, he's missed 4. So I just want to give AD his flowers, AD his props.
Yeah.
He's still very volatile when it comes to actually playing. As we mentioned, he'll drop 40 and 20 in the first in-season tournament championship, and then the next game he'll play against the Mavs and have like 19 and 7. So it's frustrating, but it's the reality that the Lakers are now in, who have also been the talk of, as we are every single year, the trade deadline approaching. The Lakers currently sit, I think they're like the 7th or 8th seed right now. They're the 8th seed, sitting at 17 and 15, talking about potentially making moves. We went through this thing about last week with D'Angelo Russell, because he was in a bit of a slump. He got moved to the bench, so people are talking about moving him. People are saying the Lakers should look at like a Zach LaVine or DeJounte Murray are the main 2 names that I'm hearing a lot in the trade rumors. But I don't know, because people are saying that you'd have to
Well,
get
the
rid of.
Bulls.
That's what I'm saying.
Well,
The Bulls are
apparently,
playing better
apparently the
without Zach
Bulls
LaVine
are
too.
just.
So,
Yeah, I was like, Zach who?
but
Never
Zach
met him.
LaVine's been so injury prone too. Like, I don't know if I'd want Zach LaVine, especially because you'd have to give up like a Austin Reeves and like a Max Christie and like a first rounder. So I'm like, I mean,
Yeah,
I understand Zach LaVine's better. He's probably like he walk out of bed and score 25 points per game, and even on the Lakers, he'd probably be like a 22 point per game scorer. But like, he's very injury prone as ready already, and we have an older team, and we're already battling through injuries. I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't do it.
yeah. Well, and also too, because like Zach LaVine, he's historically had a very high usage rate. Like at least for this season, he's up at 26.2% usage rate, and that's not going to work on the Lakers with LeBron and
No,
AD
your third option.
and what they want to do. Yeah, like so that that would have to go out the wayside, and I don't know if he's that kind of a player to play like be all that valuable without the ball in his hands. So and you have guys like Austin Reeves who can get you those critical buckets at you know in times of need, but at the same time,
He's a liability on
I
defense.
yeah
The
exactly.
Celtics were
So
literally destroying him on Christmas Day. They're like, "Oh, Drew Holiday,
mhm.
okay. Oh, Jaylen Brown, okay. Let's go to the post real quick." And it was making me mad. I was like, "That's not nice. That's not nice."
So so something that's kind of funny too. Maybe not funny if you're a Lakers fan, but
Okay,
when Austin Reeves is on the court, they are giving up 9.6 more points. So
but he's him, so it's okay.
when he is on the offensive end, he is
Him.
they're scoring 0.1 oh my bad negative 0.1 points
That was
less
garbage
with
time
him on the
minutes.
court.
Garbage time minutes. You know,
Okay,
and play,
actually that's the thing about cleaning the glass. They take that out. They adjust for that. So
I don't care about this site that you found. I don't know. They can go. I don't know. I don't care what kind of
I paid the
cleaner.
subscription
What kind
because
of cleaner are they
they
using?
can
Are
get
they using Windex? Are they using? I
okay.
don't. I don't, I don't know.
Windex.
Uh,
Yep, the good stuff.
the Celtics are
Top
taking care
shelf.
of business. Talking about the Lakers and Celtics. Celtics have been taking care of business, as we mentioned. They did beat the elite Detroit Pistons yesterday in a comeback victory in overtime. They are sitting at 24-6 and have the best record in the NBA. I'm not going to lie; they look great. And I hate saying it as a Lakers fan, but you have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and then you have Kristaps Porzingis and Derek White. Dare
Hey,
I
don't
say?
forget about my boy. I'm a big Derek White fan.
Uh,
He made me some money this year.
he's a borderline All
Um,
Star right now. He looks. he
Yeah,
looks great.
he's
And
very underrated. It must have
yeah,
been, the haircut.
yeah, he's like, we gonna go
I guess
bald.
once you go bald,
You
you
turn into
just
Michael
you just get
Jordan.
better.
Apparently,
Yeah,
he's
it's something.
their go-to clutch player at points, and like yeah, he's it sucks because like and you have Drew Holiday, so like you literally have a lineup of like
Hmm.
anybody can be the go-to guy. You could it depends on what matchup you have or who you're playing, but like you said, like when they were going against the Lakers, it was Drew Holiday and Jaylen Brown because that's who was matched up against Austin Reeves. So when they need a bucket, they can immediately go down to him, and then like we can't put in D'Lo because he was a liability on defense too, and we don't really have an answer for that. And the Celtics just have so many weapons and ways to score. And if Kristaps Porzingis is hitting threes, um, I'm sorry, I can't do anything about that. And Al Horford's just going to come in and be 74 years old, but just still play fundamental basketball. So
Hmm. Yeah, I mean,
they're a
like
very good team.
the the past few years, since coming over from Boston, his usage rate has increased. He was up at 19% when he first moved over from San Antonio. Then he went to 18% last year, and then now he's back up to 20.6%. But the big thing is his PSA, or his points per shot attempt, has gone up substantially since he's got to Boston. When he first got to Boston, it was 109.2. Now it is all the way up to 131.0, which is in the 93rd percentile of all qualifying players at his position.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, he's been a major part of their success, and it's shown both on the offensive end and the defensive end.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, I mean, again, on off stats aren't the end all be all, but it does kind of tell a story about some trends and what direction the wind is blowing, so to speak. And right now, Derek White has the highest on off stats in terms of differential on the Boston Celtics at 12.8. So on offense, they're getting 5.7 more points. On defense, they're limiting teams by 7.1 points, which is, again, in the 93rd percentile on defense. So he's getting the job done on both ends, a true 3-and-D player. And it's kind of shown that that's kind of the team that the Lakers Freudian slip there. The Celtics want to be is more of like a 3-and-D kind of team. They're not so much worried about like, oh, you want to shoot the mid range shot? That's cute. That's great. We're just gonna jack up some threes. If we get them, great. If we don't get it, that's all right too. We'll get the rebound with our unicorn down there, and he'll finish the job. So
This is facts. This is facts. I think that a potential, Eastern Conference Final matchup with them and the Milwaukee Bucks, who again have also been elite in themselves after going through their struggles early on in the season, which was to be expected with Dame, is going to be very entertaining. But last thing I wanted to get into in the East was, we talked about I don't remember. I think you had a little bit lower expectations for them, and they've actually been very surprising because I didn't think they're going to be this good. Was the Miami Heat, who are now 19-12 and currently the fourth seed overall? Jaime Jaquez Jr. has been, as we talked about, a top 4 or 5 Rookie of the Year candidate, and the Heat.
he's third right now.
He's third right now. Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
I don't blame him. He's been playing very well, and the Heat, I don't know what it is. If you look at their roster, it doesn't necessarily seem like they are a very talented team player wise. No disrespect to like a Jimmy Butler and stuff, but if your number one scorer is Tyler Hero, I'm not really expecting you guys to be beating too many teams. But it is. They
Yeah.
have 2 or 3 20-point per game scorers, and they've just been playing solid defense, and they've just been squeaking out these wins, and they actually look like a solid team.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that. I mean, well, the first game that they played without Jimmy, like it showed that they missed him and stuff.
I keep seeing
And
Jimmy's
I mean, he
graphic,
is a
his fucking hair graphic.
dude. I know it's so
I
funny
hate
whenever they show like the pregame
yeah,
stuff,
the
and they're like,
previews and stuff.
the Miami Heat taking on the yeah, it's so bad. But yeah, so like obviously again, Captain Obvious checking in. Jimmy Butler means a lot to the team, but apparently not as much as we thought because they're like, oh, Jimmy who? Well, we don't need that guy. We'll do just fine without him. One of the things that I was high on beginning of the season that ended up not coming to fruition was being high on the Hawks. Looked great beginning of the season, and it was kind of funny too because at the same time that's when the Packers were also doing really good, and I was like, yeah, they're looking pretty good, and then both of them just like tanked. Uh, Granted, the I should have known better than to trust the Hawks. They are who we thought they were, and they're extremely average, and they will never be anything more or less than extremely average.
They're less right now.
So I apologize. Yeah, so I apologize to anybody who also believed in them, because they fooled me. I was bamboozled, hoodwinked, and run amok. But no longer will I, no longer will I fall into the 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 treacherous void that is the Hawks.
And Trae Young, we
No
trust.
matter, and no, we don't. We don't do that either. um, so,
That was part of the
but
reason why that they said DeJounte Murray was going to be on the trade block, because he's been kind of disgruntled with his situation because he doesn't like it there.
yeah. So I've heard rumors, we'll call it,
Mm-hmm.
about uh Bojan Bogdanovic, and him being a potential six man of the year candidate, as well as more so because he might be on the move to another potential playoff team. Um, and granted, he also has been like swapping out there too. Um, he when he's on the court, he's adding 8.2 points to the Hawks, and when he's on out there on defense, he's limiting 2.9 points per 100 possessions. So, I mean, doing pretty solid, and he's actually one of the better contributors on the Hawks. So, um,
True.
I think that he'd be a great candidate for a six man of the year, but also I think he'd be a great addition to a playoff caliber team. Maybe the Lakers might want him. Who knows? Um,
No.
Maybe he'll go to the not the Grizzlies, the Timberwolves. I think that might be a decent fit too. Get a shooter out there. Um, the Blazers, maybe they'll trade their soul and give whatever little they have left to get. They're not
And,
getting anybody good.
y'all ain't getting nobody, and y'all ain't trading
Mm,
for anybody either, because you
we
ain't
can't.
well, because you're not letting go of Anthony, and you're not letting go of Jeremy, and you just got Scoot. So I mean, I don't even really know who else. Yeah, really, I'm not going to lie. I went to the game, and I'm not a Blazers fan, but they're a local team, so I will not root against them. But I'm not gonna lie, there was about three players that came in for the Blazers that actually got good like minutes, and I had no idea who those people were. I'm not gonna
Was
lie,
was it Tumani Kamara?
that was one of them.
Was he one of them? Yeah.
And
I'm guessing it was probably uh I don't even know who this guy is. Apparently he gets minutes.
yeah, Diop
Duop
Reith. Yeah,
Reith.
Duop Reith.
Yeah.
I was like, who is this African man? I have no idea.
Reveal yourself.
It's like, but he did come in and swap like two straight threes back to back. I was like, okay, do your thing then. Duop, 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 Dambu. I like it.
Bruh.
Uh, but yeah, so that was pretty much all I had for the NBA. The Timberwolves, as we mentioned, are still top of the West, still looking great, and they look like they're going to be a very entertaining team. I think that the Eastern Conference, the top three teams, I would be surprised if anybody else other than the Celtics, Bucks, or 76ers came out of the East. But the West, low key, I feel like is wide open. I understand that the Timberwolves have been very
Hmm.
great starts of the season. They're 13-1 at home. But I mean, when it actually comes to the playoffs, because I haven't seen it, I don't necessarily have high expectations for them to being like, oh, they're a shoe-in to make the Western Conference Finals. Like, I think the Timberwolves, the Thunder at this point, the Nuggets, the Clippers, maybe the Kings. If Dallas looks good, I always have high expectations for the Lakers. And then when Beal comes back for the Suns, we know what's going to happen. So the West is honestly wide open. And I think it's going to be a very entertaining season. And continuing on, and hopefully we can have some instances where the majority of these players like Bradley Beal stay healthy, because I want to see what the Phoenix Suns do look like with that three-headed monster. Yeah, I still do not like Yusuf Nurkic though. I watched him and I saw him. I hate him. I don't I don't like him at all.
Hate him. Dude, he's actually okay. As much
I'm
as
not
you
saying
might
he's a
hate him,
bad
he's
player.
actually
He's just annoying. I'm assuming he's one of those players that like you love to have on your team, but you had to play against him. But like, I don't like him at all. I don't like it.
so he's actually like okay. I talked about this when he first got traded. I think it was just me and you that were talking about this, and how
Hmm.
much he actually means to a team, and how much
Not
better
much.
he actually is than how much better he actually is than DeAndre Ayton, because he literally had better stats than him in just about every category, other than obviously scoring, because that's not his main job, and he knows that, which is an even more important part, because if a player knows that he's not the primary scorer and he plays his role, that is more valuable than somebody who is a scorer and is more like the second or third tier scorer on the team, but he thinks that he's the first option or even one of the top two options, like DeAndre Ayton thought he was.
Well, I agree with you, but I never argued that DeAndre Ayton was a good center. That's the problem.
Oh yeah, but okay. Point being is
Hmm.
that right now, as it stands today, Yusuf Nurkic on the Suns has a point differential of plus 14 when it comes to on off stats. Again, not the end all be all, but it sure does tell a damn good story. On offense, he adds 7.8 points, and on defense, he prevents 6.3 points per 100 possessions. And for on offense, he's in the 89th percentile. On defense, he's also in the 89th percentile. So, I mean,
A solid
he's
double
doing his
double.
job,
He's a
and
big body. He's not a
yeah,
liability on defense. He's just solid. I'm
exactly,
not saying he's bad. I'm just
exactly.
saying I don't like him. That's
You put some respect on his name, goddamn.
yep. Devin Booker is
But
averaging 8.2 assists too. I didn't see that. That's kind of crazy.
yeah, I that was one other thing that I talked about at the beginning of the season is that he's gonna be he's gonna be the main point guard as opposed to Bradley Beal. Well, granted, Bradley Beal hasn't
I
even
would
really
say we
played,
haven't seen it,
but
but yeah, I agree with you.
yeah, but I think that he's the better option as a point guard than Bradley Beal would be in terms of shot creating, in terms of playmaking. I think he's the better choice in that spot. One thing that I wanted to note before we dip, dodge, duck, and dive on out of here is
Hmm.
that the Minnesota Timberwolves, while they have been great and they have been great against elite competition, one thing that I've noticed that I've got burned by is whenever they play against a a solid post player or anybody that has a high caliber defensive prowess, they end up losing that game. Other than,
It's true.
well, at least, or they don't cover like they didn't against the Lakers either. I'm kind of mad about that one, but they lost against the Thunder when obviously have Chet, and then they lost
76ers.
against the 76ers. Even though Brandon Ingram is more of like a mid range guard, kind of mid range forward,
Oh, for
um,
the Pelicans,
he
yeah.
still is. Yeah, but they also score a lot of their baskets in the mid range and in around the rim too. Um, and then Sacramento, they lost to them. With granted, they had a lot of players that were out in that game, but nevertheless, with Domantas Sabonis. And then against the Suns, I don't even know what the hell happened with that game. They just lost. That was just the hell. But
We don't talk
point
about Bruno.
being is that yeah, a point being is that when they play against these um, uh, players that are like scoring big men, essentially, they aren't able to handle them nearly as well. Even though it's weird because you would think that they would, with Rudy Gobert being down there, being one of the contenders for Defensive Player of the Year. But all of a sudden, again, whenever you play against a elite player, he doesn't do anything. He's just just a guy, just Jag. So something to note if you're looking at backing any of the Timberwolves in the future against one of these teams. So
Fair enough, fair enough. That's all I got for the NBA.
yeah, that's all I got too. I think the only other thing is just making sure you're liking, subscribing, doing all the things, making sure you're downloading the podcast. That's one of the biggest things too, because that's where you get the metrics. For some reason, it doesn't show listens on Buzzsprout, which is what we use to kind of track that stuff. Don't show it on there, which is kind of dumb, but it does show it on YouTube, as you know. So don't forget we're also over there. Do you have anything else, my good sir?
Nope. We still also have our Instagram, and you can find the link to our YouTube podcast and the pics through our app. Or through the app that we use. Other than that, that's pretty much it. This has been the Call Your Shot podcast with your host, Alex Harris and Drew Moore. We, again, look to film on Wednesdays, but sometimes that doesn't work out depending on our schedule. So we just usually try to film sometime within the midweek. So we will be back, at least for sure, next week sometime during
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely. One last parting word is Broncos country. Let's ride.
Okay. We'll see y'all next week.